And I'll do my best here. Hopefully I don't destroy it too much. Waki Abawastik Dada Nastada Tansi, hello and welcome. Wherever in the world or across Canada, and we know you come from far and wide to join us on a Friday. Thank you for being here. At SAIT, it's important to us, and those of you who are regular are used to this by now, to take a moment to acknowledge and recognize where we're situated. All three of us today are joining you from Calgary, which, much like SAIT's main campus, is situated on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy. Today, that area encompasses our Indigenous people of the Treaty 7 region, which is the Siksika, the Piikani, the Kainai, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda, and the Chiniki, Bearsport, and Wesley First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. For all of us, these are lands where these people have lived, traveled, and gathered for thousands of years. We all walk in the footprints of our Métis people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Well done, as always. And as mentioned, as we were starting to fill in the room, we're very pleased and honored to be joined by Iggy Domagalski this morning. Iggy is the CEO of Wajax. And one of the most fascinating facts that I discovered in an earlier conversation I heard you have, Iggy, was the fact that Wajax itself is older than Canada. And I think that's a very, very remarkable stat. And I can only imagine the number of leaders that have guided Wajax through the years, and must be an interesting piece of history for you to look back on. But thank you so much for joining us. These conversations are meant to help folks on the line think about their leadership, think about how they grow their leadership potential and their capabilities. And we like to kick off these conversations with a question, the same question to every guest, and that is, what does leading beyond any title mean to you?
That's the main question of the day, isn't it?
It is.
The title of the show. And before we get into it, thanks very much for having me on here. Thrilled to be here. I love SAIT. I've within our business, we have partnered with SAIT on so many different things, from recruiting students to sending our people for executive education, to sponsoring capstone projects and donating equipment. And we've just really loved every step along the way. So thanks for all that you do for the community, including this, doing sessions like this where we can have good conversations and have some people on the line to ask some questions. I think this is wonderful. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
What does leading beyond any title mean? I really believe that leadership is a privilege, and to be in the role of a leader is a real privilege, and that if you get to that point, that you're pretty lucky to get to do that. And I also think that the workplace arguably has the most impact on anyone. And so if you think about the hours that you spend at work versus anything else, work is for sure the most compared to anything else. Like, you do spend more time at work than you do with your family, you spend more time at work than you do with your friends, you spend more time at work than you do in any community, church, whatever group. Work is usually the number one place where you spend the most of your time, maybe except your bed, right? And so the workplace has such a big impact, and as leaders, we have the ability to send people home fulfilled and happy and engaged. And you have the ability to send them home with that positive energy that then I think translates into positive energy to their family and to their friends and into their community. And that positive energy just flows throughout the community and the country. You also have the ability to do the opposite. You have the ability to send people home frustrated and angry and not fulfilled, and they'll take that out on their family too, and they won't be nice in their community, and they won't be nice to their friends. And so I think this impact that we can have, where we have the ability to shape people's lives to some way for 40 hours a week. It's a lot of time. It can just have such a big positive impact. And I think business can have the most positive impact of anything in the community, or negative. So you really have to take that responsibility very seriously. And when I think about leading beyond any title, I think every leader in a company has the ability to shape that. And doesn't matter what your title is in an organization. If you're in a leadership position, the people that you're responsible for caring for and for leading, like, you will directly impact their lives in a major way, either good or bad. And hopefully most people choose good. And so that's why I think that's what leading beyond any title means to me. It's more than just leading at work. I think it's creating either a better or a worse society, and everyone has the ability to do that. That's in a leadership role.
That's there's a lot in there. I love this. Leadership is a privilege. It's such an obvious concept too, but workplace has the potential to have the most impact on somebody. I thank you for bringing that up, because I think that is a tremendous reminder for all of us. And I love your thought there about, you can send them home happy and fulfilled, or you can't. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, and then Jennie, I'll come to you to see where we want to dig into here. But Iggy, did you choose leadership, or did leadership choose you?
That's a good question. I think probably a little bit of both. As a young person, I was always pretty entrepreneurial, and I always just really loved business. I knew since I was fairly young that business is likely where I would end up. My parents were quite entrepreneurial, owning retail stores and a number of businesses, so it was just around the kitchen table, and it was something that I seemed to like, and I from a young age seemed to want to have some type of positive impact on what I was doing. So just as an example, when I was in university, we had a student government there in our business school called the Commerce Students Association, and I ran in the election to be the leader of that. So that was definitely me seeking it out, and then being the leader of that student council. But in many other cases, it's not that it found me, it's that I was lucky to have these really, really amazing mentors who maybe saw something in me that I didn't necessarily see, and gave me opportunities to do things maybe a little earlier than I probably should have, and kind of threw me into the deep end. And thankfully I was able to swim and not drown, although it felt like I was drowning sometimes. But I think that was in terms of it finding me, it was really some great mentors that I had who gave me a shot to do some things at a few key points in my career, and that really made a difference. So that was a bit of luck being inserted into the equation.
Wow! So we've got the full spectrum. We can go anywhere we like here, and just Craig, like, I love that ripple effect. I don't think we hook onto that enough. I mean, we often talk in here, leadership is a behavior, so you don't even need a title to understand that ripple effect of what happens at work in our culture has that knock-on effect all the way through into everything that happens. But that last part just there, where your mentors, you ended up being thrown in at the deep end, also takes me to that imposter syndrome question. And you said, thankfully I knew how to swim. That's another whole spectrum as well. I'm wondering if we can start there, actually, Iggy, because often, when we do have that title, we end up with the leader title. And I've been chatting to rooms full of people all week, and in fact, imposter syndrome was something that we chatted on. And every single time, somebody in the room said, they're going to figure me out one of these days. They'll just figure out that I don't know what I'm doing. And so, can we just hook onto that for a second? When you find yourself in something completely new, do you have a sort of strategy that you look to in yourself to be able to provide for your people, for your team, for your business, wherever that might be? And when you're in that deep end, what's your go-to?
There was a lot in the comments that you said there, Jennie. And when I first think about imposter syndrome, there's that funny saying, 90% of people have it and the other 10% lie about it. Something like that. And so I think we all have it. I've had it multiple times in my career, and I really do think everybody has it, no matter what they're doing. I mean, if you're one of the people who are going up fast in an organization, you'll naturally have it because you don't have the skills yet. So you think, what do I even belong here, and should I be doing this? But really think everybody has it. I think if you are, pick a trade, an electrician as an example, right? If you're an electrician and you've been doing the same job for 25 years, you're an expert. I think that person still has imposter syndrome, because if you go to that electrician, you would assume that they know everything about electrical, but really they probably only know about this little piece of electrical that they work on. And I think they would have imposter syndrome and be a little bit embarrassed that they don't understand these other pieces of electrical, even they're this deemed expert. And I think if you even think of world-class leaders in anything, when the people that are getting up and doing TED Talks and doing things like that, I think those folks have it too, because when you're the world leading expert, you are expected to know absolutely everything on that topic. And of course you don't, because nobody can. So they would have imposter syndrome too. So I really think everybody probably in the world has imposter syndrome, and 90% of people, admit it, and 10% of people lie about it. But
and I think, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Jenny, and the diving into the deep end. I've just always tried to talk to people around me and other people that I know that are a little outside of whatever situation I'm in, and try to get their advice. I try to read a lot, and I always find comfort in the fact that whatever I'm about to do or try to figure out, like thousands, maybe of millions, probably millions of people have already figured it out. And there's books on it, and usually there's some kind of general formula or framework that you can follow. So it's not like the work that we do in leadership is, you're the only one ever doing it, and it's a first flight to Jupiter and we're figuring it out and no one ever else has done it. A lot of people have done it. So I take some comfort in that the information's out there. I just need to go look it up. Other people have figured it out, and hopefully I can too.
Yeah, I like that. And then I think there's a key piece for everybody there. We're never alone. We feel like we're alone sometimes. We feel like we're the only person in the world suffering. And to your point, there's always somebody to talk to ask, to dig into. And I think the other key thing there too is nobody knows it all anymore. That used to be the way that we would focus on it, but now we don't. Thank you.
Absolutely.
You've mentioned a couple times already, you've mentioned mentors. You said you're lucky enough to have mentors. You're talking about reading and then also finding or working with mentors to help develop those skills. It sounds like you're very intentional about mentor relationships. Maybe I'm making an assumption there, but how do you look at that, and how have you used and found and leveraged mentors, and what advice would you give to others about doing the same to help develop their leadership?
Yeah, that's you're right, Craig. I'm pretty intentional about it. It's something that's pretty important to me, and like you were saying, Jenny, just nobody knows everything, and there's so many different perspectives and ways of looking at problems that it's great to have a wonderful network of people that you can lean on, and that doesn't just magically happen. You got to cultivate that over years, and like any good kind of program, you don't want to cultivate it during times of panic. I got this giant problem, now I got to build this network of mentors so I can go reach out to them. The best time to start building a group of mentors is a decade ago, and the second best time is now. And so really start reaching out to people who, the way that I've done it is I reach out to people who I look up to, and who, if I don't know them, that I know somebody who knows them, who can make an introduction. And most of the people that I would think of as mentors are super busy and don't have a lot of time. So I really think about how do you get the most of their brain power as I can in the shortest amount of possible time. Like when I think about, if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, can we have a mentoring relationship? Let's go out for lunch and maybe spend a couple hours together. I'm like, well, I've got people in my company that I got to spend time with. And so that's very difficult to do. But if someone comes up to me and says, hey, you know what, I'm dealing with this specific challenge. I know that you've dealt with it because I researched this, and this. Would you have 10 minutes on the phone? I got 2 questions that I want to ask you, and I just want to get your quick input on it. And you can do it when you're driving, right? Like I'm much more apt to say yes to something like that. And I kind of felt that was the case with some of the people that I was looking to for advice. And then once you have that first 10-minute conversation, then the next one turns into 15 minutes, and you build a relationship from there. But so that's how I've approached it a little bit, is picking and choosing the people that I really want to pick their brain and nurturing that relationship. You got to have that end point, which usually is a quick 10-minute conversation. And over the years, I've got a lot of those. I've got a few that I've been leaning on for a couple decades, and a few that I've only started to lean on recently. And so the way that I do it is when I have challenges, I just have a little notepad that I kind of write down the big questions that I want to ask. And once I get to like 3 or 4 big questions, I'll look at my list and I'll figure out which people I think can help me the most, and I'll try to set up a call with them just to pick their brain on those specific things. And that's worked. That's worked pretty well for me. So I would definitely suggest that to anybody, to really build that group of mentors. It doesn't have to only be one, and be really, really respectful of their time.
I really like that. It doesn't have to be one. Like, I think we get caught up sometimes thinking, oh, I need this mentor who's all at everything and anything. And that idea that we can have many. And I often joke, I have at least 10 mentors, and half of them don't even know that that's what I would call them. It's just the relationship that we've built, but they are my go-to, and it's different according to the issue that we're trying to solve. But I really like that, narrow the questions. That's helpful, especially as everybody's so busy.
I'm
really
the same as you, Jenny.
I've
I've got over 10 people that I routinely call on to pick their brain on certain topics, and it's so helpful. And I'll often ask 5 or 6 of them the same question, just to get different views.
And what a great way to move forward. Yeah, sorry, Craig.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's your personal board of directors, unlike the board of directors that you actually report to now, right? So anyway, sorry, Jenny.
Yeah, well, it's kind of where I'm going, actually. I wanted to go back to the people and this ripple effect, because prior to Wajax, Tundra was a small sort of mid-sized company known for its culture, absolutely known for its culture. And now you've shifted into this much, much bigger organization. And just, on the small amount that I know coming into this conversation, people really are your focus, it would appear. And I'm wondering if we can just dig into, how do you help a company, because your reach is not the entirety, sort of get to that point of fulfilled, happy, and engaged as they go home? And that's a big question, but we can go anywhere off that platform.
Yeah, that's that is a great question. So I was fortunate to be at a company called Tundra Process Solutions for close to 15 years, and I was a CEO of that company for the last 6 or 7 that I was there. Wonderful company, loved it. We had a ton of fun growing that company. And as you mentioned, Jenny, I think that we did a pretty good job of building a good culture, just because we were really, really thoughtful and intentional about it, almost on a daily basis. And it would be a key topic of conversation at our leadership meetings. And a culture will form any company. Every company in the world has a culture. What that culture is different at every company, but every company has one. And if management is not intentional about creating that culture, then it will just kind of brew on its own, and you'll get what you'll get. Sometimes great, sometimes not great, and sometimes great is different in the eyes of different beholders. So we were quite intentional about it, and I think there was a few things that we did, and if I was to put it into some buckets, I would say there was communication, trust, and a bit of fun. So I think those would be the 3. A great piece of advice that I got a long time ago from a consultant that we had actually hired is, once you get over like 100, 150 people, as a leader, you really have to publicly explain why you make decisions. Not just here's a decision, but why you made that decision, and how you came to that decision, just so that the people on your front lines and all of your leaders, they can understand how you got there. And they may not agree with the decision, and they may not even agree with your line of thinking, but at least they understand how you got there, as opposed to just, these guys are idiots, I can't believe they're making this decision this way. Because when you don't explain how you got there, people just assume you're stupid. And and so I found that just being really transparent and honest and explaining why we made decisions was really helpful. So that was a communication piece. And just over the years, we shared more and more. We were a private company, so we were always very, very secretive about sharing financials. And I don't know why we were that way. I don't know why private companies are that way, but we were. And I found when we started to share everything and more and more and more and more, things got better and better and better. So that was those were some good lessons around communication. Around trust, we really tried to make it okay to speak up and okay to ask tough questions of management, which I think we got kind of annoyingly good at. And what I mean by that is, like, we would have company-wide town halls with all of our people on there, and I would get called to the mat on things. Like, it was sometimes I would get asked some rough questions in front of the whole company, which was great. We wanted to have that culture where people felt comfortable enough that they could ask those questions, and in times where people weren't comfortable, I would plant questions with people. I would plant hard questions that I didn't even really want to answer, but I wanted to really I wanted people to feel comfortable that they could do that. So that was kind of the trust piece. I think we had a pretty good at Tundra, and we're building towards that at Wajax. It's just a function of time. It doesn't happen overnight. And around trust, I also think it's it means giving people chances to try new things, maybe that they're not quite ready for, or maybe that they'll fail at. Throw them into the deep end and having the trust that they'll figure it out. I think that's a piece of trust. And then fun. We talked about, you spend half of your waking life at work. It's the group of people that you spend the most time with. It can be enjoyable. It doesn't have to be unenjoyable. I think that the first piece of that is the biggest part of liking your work. It's not the foosball tables or the free coffee or whatever. It's the people that you work with. And so making sure that we're hiring for the proper fit, and really just ensuring that the people are caring and like each other, and that we're hiring kind people. And then creating some opportunities for our people to connect in an enjoyable way. Maybe that is over a foosball game, but or maybe it's a sponsored pub night or something like that. But there was just creating opportunities for people to connect on a more personal level. We found built the relationships better and made the place a little bit more fun. So sorry, I just downloaded a lot, but you asked, so I wanted to go into it.
Yeah, I know there's a ton of great stuff in there, and your Stampede parties were good.
They still are good.
they still are good. There's a couple things I'd like to try and tap into, Iggy, and very, very different. So your comment about explaining why you made decisions and how you made them. Clearly, not every decision, I shouldn't say clearly, I'm going to assume that every decision you made was not the right one, right? Leaders make mistakes. So I'm just curious about your kind of relationship with mistakes, and as a leader, what kind of relationship with making mistakes should a leader try and develop? If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good question. We all make mistakes, and I've made some gargantuan ones. I've almost personally bankrupted our company on a number of occasions, but fortunately, none of it. We didn't actually bankrupt ourselves. But I think it's important that you admit your mistakes when they happen, and we've tried to do that. And I think it's okay for a leader to say, we made the wrong choice here. We've taken the new feedback, and we're adjusting course based on this feedback. And I always tell my kids, I have 2 girls who are 13, that it's okay to change your mind if you get new and better information. And it always irked me that people would say, well, we're already on this path, we can't change it, even though we have all this new information. I'm like, I think you can change it. And it's okay to say, we've received new information that makes our old hypothesis wrong, and so we're changing a bunch of stuff. But again, I think you just need to explain why. I think just changing course all of a sudden, without explaining that you made a mistake or you got new information or whatever the case is, that can be challenging. And that's when the people in your company start thinking that you're stupid and thinking that you don't know what you're doing.
Context is huge, right? And it's interesting. I don't know when we shifted as a group that, you know, changing your mind was a bad thing, right? I think it's a sign of an increasingly polarizing world that we're living in, where you can't change your mind. And I think it's Adam Grant, Jenny, I think, that comments on this, that, you know, wisdom is actually gaining knowledge and being able to adjust your decision making, or something to that effect. I can't remember the exact quote. And anyway, I appreciate that, because I think the other thing I really get a sense from you, Iggy, is vulnerability. As a leader, what you're talking about, being able to go to mentors and say, I need help with this, or being intentional about your own development because you realize you may lack in a certain area, or being willing to step up and say, hey, we made a mistake. You strike me as being incredibly comfortable with being vulnerable and trusting and being able to share. I don't know if that triggers any thought for you, but you've had a remarkable career for where you're at in life, and I think there's a lot tied into that. And I don't know, it's not really a question in there. I'm curious if that triggers any thoughts around leadership and vulnerability.
Yeah, a little bit. I think I don't know everything. There's so much I don't know, and I make mistakes all the time, like every leader. And I think part of the where I've also been lucky is when I've had these mentors, or a board that I'm reporting to, or a leader that I was reporting to. You know, over time they made it clear that it's okay if you don't know everything. And so Wajax, where I work today, is a publicly traded company, which means a formal board of directors. You know, there's other than me, there's 10 people on the board. I report to them. I have conversations with them. They're my boss, and you know, they were pretty clear with me that, you know, we know that you fully don't know what you're doing. Like you ran this other company. It was, you know, it was an Alberta-based company that had 150 employees. This is a Canadian company, you know, in geographies that you don't understand, in new businesses, in new business lines that you're not familiar with instead of 150 people, it's got 3,000 people, and it's publicly traded. So you got all these new elements that you're dealing with. And the only way to get good at that is to do that job. So that was so nice to hear, that they said, we get it. We know you don't have to be an expert from day one. We're here to support you. You've already got a great management team in place that has been in this environment for a long time, so they can support you, and they'll help you learn what you need to learn so that you can do what you need to do in your day-to-day. So I think, you know, if I was going to put out a message out there to senior leaders or board directors, or, you know, folks like that, is the people that are reporting to you, like, let them know that. Let them know that they don't need to know everything from day one, because if they have this impression that they need to, then they'll be afraid to reach out and ask questions. Like they'll think, oh, I'm supposed to know that. I was put into this role because I need to know that. I can't ask about that. And that, I think that can create far more problems than when leaders stop asking questions of the people that they report to. That's a problem.
Yeah, it's so difficult, I think, for some to lose the image of perfect. We grew up with perfect leaders, and today there's just no way that we can even match that fit. So to your point, you know, I don't know, and full credit to that group that said to you, this is how you're going to get the experience, and we've got you. And that's the key, I think, as you said just there, Iggy, for leaders, is how often do we extend that care and that support. And I think we've come back to that trust for the people that we've hired in the jobs that we have. And, you know, I pick up a lot of this trust. It was in one of your buckets, actually. I think we had communication, trust, and fun. So that trust piece is a real sort of significant part within leadership. How do you help the leaders who report to you, Iggy, with trusting their people? This doesn't come naturally to a lot of us. Like I fall into the bucket of, oh, you're a person, I'll trust you. And then it might go sideways. But we've an awful lot of leaders out there that really struggle with that idea of that full trust, to give people the autonomy and to do their jobs. Do you have anything that you sort of go to in that world of trust that can help people with that?
Yeah, good question, Jenny. Thanks. Maybe a couple things. I think the first one is you got to really lead by example, and on the trust factor and really trusting the folks that report directly to me. I think if you ask them if I gave them, full autonomy to do whatever they need to do, I think generally they would say yes. And I remember this. When people come to me with an idea about what they want to do within their business or how they want to do something within whatever they're doing, unless they're like really far off of kind of the general direction that the company's going, I usually let them do it 100% their way. And one of the lessons that I learned along the way is that, if you get in there and you say, hey, this is really great, but I would tweak this and I would tweak this. I might make the idea 5% better in my own view. It might not actually be better. It might be 5% better in my view, but I've lost 95% of the accountability because it's no longer their idea. Now it's my idea. And if it doesn't work out, it's because you tweaked it. Let me do it my way. And so, and who am I even to say that my little tweaks would make it better? Maybe it made it worse. So generally, as long as it's aligned with where we're going and the vision of the company and our values, then I let our team do it the way that they want to do it, because I know it'll just get done better, and it'll get done to the way that they are comfortable working. So I guess that's one. It's if you want your people to trust their people, you have to trust them first, and then the other piece is, I think, just having opportunities to build trust in some kind of team building environment. So we try to do some team building events and get people together in person. I'll give them opportunities to connect on a personal level, and then also providing them with the tools to be good leaders. So leadership training programs, and actually, when we ask people to step up to be leaders, that we give them some training on even the very, very basics on how to be a leader. I know too many times in our company, and probably most companies in the world, hey, you're the best salesman, now you're the sales manager, good luck. Or you're the best technician, now you're the service manager, good luck. And that's, I just don't think that's fair to the new leader to not have it, any training.
Yeah. I'm chuckling, Iggy, because I've seen the sales person to sales leader many times in my career. And hopefully my team right now isn't thinking that's how I got here. But you touched on, you said something there that also, I wanted to get your thought on this before we moved on to our quick fire questions, this whole concept of bringing people back in person. I think the story of how Tundra ended up being sold to Wajax, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you sold it entirely online in the height of the pandemic, if I'm right. So there's where I'm going with this question, and please feel free to expand on that, because I thought that was a fascinating story. But as a leader, what have you seen, or how have you had to adapt or help your team adapt to leading remotely versus leading in person as well?
Yeah, so you're correct. Wajax approached Tundra during the pandemic about selling. It seemed like a good timing, and we had a majority shareholder and chairman who was, he was nearing retirement, and so it's that all the timing kind of worked out, and the deal worked out. And yeah, we did it without ever meeting anybody in person, which was it was a little bit odd. Eventually, we met everyone after the deal was closed, but it was odd doing such a big significant thing, big and significant for us anyway, and doing it all online. But I guess it just goes to show you what you can do online. Like if you can do that, you can do a lot of other things. Wajax we're a really distributed company. So we've got 120 branches across the country. So doing things online was something that Wajax was actually already quite comfortable with. So it wasn't, it was a change, but not that big of a change. It was actually way more of a change for Tundra. Tundra was a much more in-person, Alberta only. If you're in Edmonton, you need to see someone in Calgary, you just drive down. And so I think it was actually harder on Tundra than on Wajax. And I think like every business, we've just tried to do our best. And we do monthly town halls online that we try to keep entertaining. We communicate through videos to our teammates. We have meetings with our leaders to pass on messages to them that they can then pass on to the front lines. I do my best to visit a lot of branches, or other senior leaders visit branches when they can. So I think it's a combination of trying to communicate to people in as many different ways as possible, even through things like this. When I saw the list of people in the chat, I recognize some names from Wajax on there. So if this is a way that I can interact with those folks, and they can, and they can, kind of understand my thinking a little bit, and it helps them understand how we're making certain decisions at the company, I think that's useful.
I think we've hit our point here where we need to move on to our quick fire questions. So Jennie, off to you to start things off. And Iggy, this has been fantastic. So thank you. So I've got 2 pages of notes here. I've learned a lot. So anyway, Jennie, over to you.
It really has. But I have one question, and it's just popped up. I think, Iggy, you may have seen it. I don't know what's up on your screen, but someone has asked us, how on earth do you keep a town hall entertaining?
Yeah, we try our best. I don't know how successful we are, but we try to keep them tight. We try to keep them to half an hour. It's online, and we'll probably have 10 or 15 different people presenting, and we try to keep the energy level up.
Wow.
And we really try to have a lot of spotlights on what's happening in the company. So our opening slide is always a spotlight on a person, maybe somebody having a 40th anniversary with the company, or somebody that did something wonderful or had a big life milestone. We'll do spotlights on our branches, explaining some of the business that they do, or key wins that they had. And then all the things that all the content that we cover, we try to make it really, really relevant to the people that are watching. But we know there's a lot of things that our people probably don't care about that I might work on a daily basis. So we try to pick out the nuggets that they do care about, or that might be at least interesting to them. We try our best. I don't know if we always hit the mark, but it's definitely not one person just getting on and talking for an hour. It's there's movement.
There's some great advice in there for anyone who does a town hall who's listening as well. Okay, sorry, Craig, back on track. Rapid fire questions, which is where we always come to at the end of here. And I'll echo Craig, Iggy, thank you. We've learnt so much already. I too have a ton of notes jotted down. So these are our regular questions. Those of you who've been here before will recognize them. And we're really curious to seeing the different ways that this shows up in different leadership. And so the first one that we always ask, Iggy, is for you as a leader, what are your 3 non-negotiable behaviors that you will hold the folks in your team and potentially yourself to on a daily basis?
Yeah, great question. I think one of them is there has to be alignment with our company purpose and values. Interestingly, as Craig mentioned at the beginning of the show here, Wajax we're 9 years older than Canada. We were founded in 1858, making us 165 years old, which is fairly insane to me. And we've been through a couple of world wars and the Spanish flu, everything, and we're still here. But we haven't had a purpose and value, purpose and set of core values in that time, and we're just launching that and developing that. And for me, essential behaviors are being aligned with that. That's where our company is going. That's the purpose, and the values is how we're supposed to behave. So if you're materially out of line with that, that's a problem. That's one. I think just being honest. I tell our folks whenever I have conversations, I'm like, I just need to know how it really is. I don't need sugarcoated. I don't need you to tell me what you think I want to hear. I just need the truth as best as you can deliver it to me. And so for me, that's important, getting the right information. So honesty, and then just caring. I think leaders and our frontline folks and individual contributors just need to care, right? You need to, like, if you're customer facing, you need to care about the customer, care about your teammates, and just be there because you care. And I think if you have that, if you have someone that's aligned with your purpose and values, who's honest and who cares about their work and about the people that they're serving, the rest you can figure out.
Yeah,
that's great. Iggy, I heard you say on a prior podcast that I listened to before this conversation that when you're young, you're dumb. And
well,
so
I don't know if maybe I'm still dumb.
No, so where I'm going with this is, what's one piece of advice you would give Iggy starting out on his journey as a leader, which essentially is, what's one piece of advice you would give folks listening today starting on their leadership journey?
I think for me, it would to figure out a way to be more compassionate at a younger age. And I don't know how you do that. Like when you're young, you don't have kids usually. So when you hear other people talking about their struggles with kids, you don't understand. You don't really care because you don't have any. So you just, everyone should think like you. And when you're young and, 27 years old, and everyone lives for the business, and realizing that not everyone lives for the business is pretty important. So I think just figuring out ways to build compassion for your people and their unique situations is something that's important. I don't have the answer on how, but if I could have figured that out a little earlier, I think that would have been a little better.
That's great.
Very cool. So as a leader, this is 3-part. Where were you as a leader? Where are you today as a leader? And where will you be as a leader?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I mean, leadership development, I think, is a never-ending journey right until the end. And so where I was, I was leading Tundra was such a wonderful experience. That was kind of the past part. And I loved it. I learned so much. I loved the people there. And that was a small, mid-sized private company. Where I am today, it was kind of a big step to jump into this Wajax. So I've really been at Tundra. It was more focused on executing. I'd been there a long time. I knew the business, I knew the people, and it was just executing our plans. And now it's way more learning. The last 2 years have been the biggest learning years of my career, and we're in the process of rolling out our purpose and values. We're setting out a new 5-year strategic plan here in the next 6 months. So putting a lot of effort into making sure that we're doing that the right way, learning how to do that the right way. So I just finished up a course in terms of my development, the Institute of Corporate Directors course, the Director Education program. I'm reading lots, and really I'm continuing to reach out to our front lines to learn more about our business. I mean, I look at the next quarter. I was just looking at it before this call, but I know I'm going to be in Toronto, Ottawa, Thunder Bay, Montreal, Quebec City, Winnipeg, Grand Prairie, and Fort McMurray in the next quarter. Quarter after that, I'll be heading to Japan to visit one of our suppliers. So just continuing to learn. And where will I be? I don't know. I hope better. I hope smarter. I hope more compassionate. But I don't know exactly where I'll be. I like where I am right now. I love Wajax, and I love what I'm doing here. But what the future looks like, I don't think anyone really knows that. But I do plan on being here for quite some time because it's a wonderful company and a wonderful opportunity.
That's great. Okay, last question for you, and just folks in the chat, I'm going to pop in just our upcoming sessions if you want to take a second to register. But Iggy, one thing that we've done is we've asked our prior guests to leave a question behind for the next guest. And so they didn't know who the next guest was. And this question comes from Heather Magato, who's our Vice President of External Relations here at SAIT. And her question was wanting to know where you learned to become a leader, and specifically, is that like from another leader that you looked up to and who that might be, or a leader that's a cautionary tale of what not to do as a leader?
That is a good question. I I think every leader that you look up to probably has a little bit of both of those things. I don't know that there's one leader or mentor that I've had that I said I want to be exactly like them. I think you have to match your own personality to the things that you really like about them. Take those things and maybe put away some of the things that you didn't like about the way that they did. I would think that the leader that had the greatest impact on me was our majority shareholder at Tundra. His name was Mike. We still stay in touch a lot. I'd lean on him for a lot of advice. So he's a person that had the most impact on me in terms of just leadership capabilities. And he always had this mantra about family and health first. And it's easy to say that, family and health first, but it's hard to live it. And when you do, I think that makes a really big difference in a company.
Excellent. So I'll be reaching out to you to get your question for our next guest. But thank you so much, Iggy. I truly appreciate you making the time and joining us here. Your support for SAIT is always appreciated and has always been tremendous. So thank you so much for making the time. And Jennie, as always, I appreciate you and what you bring to these conversations. And Iggy, we'll give you the last word before I hit close on the session.
Well, it was great to see you both. Thank you for inviting me on here. Craig, Jennie, wonderful to see you. And thanks to everyone who joined online. Really, really great to be here.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks all. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.